The moment she grabbed my arm, I knew something was wrong. Not because of what she said, but because of the fear in her eyes. It was a bright summer afternoon, and the small forest lodge was crowded with tourists enjoying the weekend. Children laughed near the hiking trails. Families gathered around picnic tables. Everything looked peaceful. Yet standing in front of me was a young woman whose smile seemed forced, whose hands trembled slightly, and whose eyes kept darting toward someone behind me. Then she stepped closer and whispered the words that changed both of our lives forever. Please. Pretend to kiss me. He's watching. Before we continue this emotional story, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Journey of Kindness if you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. I had never seen her before. My name is Adrian Mercer, and at that time I was 28 years old. I worked as a wildlife photographer and spent most of my days traveling from one national park to another, capturing moments that most people never noticed. I preferred the company of nature over crowds and usually kept to myself. That afternoon, I had stopped at a mountain lodge after finishing a photography assignment nearby. I was sitting on a wooden bench reviewing pictures from my camera when the young woman suddenly appeared. She couldn't have been older than 24. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and she wore a light backpack as if she had been hiking. To everyone else, she probably looked like another tourist enjoying the sunshine. But fear has a language of its own. And I recognized it immediately. Instead of doing exactly what she asked, I leaned closer and smiled naturally. Everything okay, my love. The words sounded convincing enough. Anyone watching would assume we were a couple. For a brief moment, relief flashed across her face. Then she nodded almost invisibly. I followed her gaze. About 50 yards away stood a tall man wearing sunglasses and a black jacket despite the warm weather. He wasn't talking to anyone. He wasn't looking at the scenery. He was staring directly at us. The feeling that crawled down my spine wasn't fear. It was instinct. Something wasn't right. The woman introduced herself quietly as Serena Holloway while we slowly walked toward the lodge cafe. She continued pretending we knew each other while explaining the situation in short whispers. For the last 2 days, the stranger had been following her. First at a gas station. Then at a hiking trail. Then outside the small cabin she had rented. Every time she changed locations, he somehow appeared again. At first she thought it was coincidence. Now she wasn't so sure. She had tried ignoring him. She had tried leaving. Nothing worked. When she spotted me sitting alone, she made a desperate decision. She needed someone nearby. Someone who could make her look less vulnerable. Someone who could help. As we entered the cafe, the man remained outside. Watching. Waiting. Serena's hands shook as she wrapped them around a cup of coffee. I could see exhaustion in her face. The kind of exhaustion that comes from being afraid for too long. I suggested calling the police immediately. To my surprise, tears suddenly filled her eyes. Then she revealed the truth. The man wasn't a stranger. He was her ex-boyfriend. His name was Victor Kane. Months earlier, Serena had ended their relationship after years of emotional manipulation and controlling behavior. Victor had never accepted it. He sent messages. He appeared at her workplace. He followed her social media accounts using fake profiles. Every time she blocked him, another account appeared. Eventually, she moved to another city. For a while, the harassment stopped. Then, 3 days earlier, she saw him again. The fear she had worked so hard to escape came rushing back. As she told me everything, I realized she wasn't simply scared. She was trapped. Because people around her kept dismissing her concerns. Friends told her she was overreacting. Coworkers said Victor was probably just heartbroken. Even some family members encouraged her to forgive and forget. Nobody seemed to understand how frightening it was to constantly look over your shoulder. Nobody except someone who had experienced something similar. Years earlier, my younger sister had endured a nearly identical situation. Back then, our family hadn't taken the warning signs seriously until things became dangerous. Thankfully, she survived. But the guilt of not acting sooner never left me. And now, sitting across from Serena, I knew I couldn't walk away. That evening, I offered to help her report everything properly. We documented messages, saved photographs, collected evidence. The local sheriff's office listened carefully and agreed to investigate. For the first time all day, Serena seemed able to breathe. But our troubles were far from over. The next morning, Victor escalated. When Serena opened her cabin door, she found a single white flower lying on the porch. There was no note, no message, no explanation, just the flower. To anyone else, it might have seemed harmless. But Serena immediately began crying. During their relationship, Victor had given her a white flower every time he manipulated her into staying. It was his signature. His reminder that he could always find her. The message was clear. He knew exactly where she was. The sheriff increased patrols around the area, but Victor remained difficult to locate. Days passed. I extended my stay to help Serena. What started as concern slowly became friendship. We spent afternoons hiking crowded trails where she felt safe. We shared stories over coffee. We talked about dreams abandoned because of fear. Little by little, her smile became genuine again. The frightened woman who had approached me on that bench began rediscovering herself. And somewhere along the way, something unexpected happened. I started caring about her. Not because she needed saving, but because of her courage. Every day she woke up despite her fear. Every day she kept moving forward. Every day she refused to let darkness define her future. That kind of strength changes people. It changed me. One afternoon, nearly 2 weeks after we met, Serena admitted something. Before approaching me that day, she had almost left the lodge entirely. She had considered abandoning her vacation. Giving up. Running away again. But she was tired of running. For the first time, she wanted to stand her ground. The problem was she didn't know how. That confession stayed with me. Because sometimes courage doesn't mean being fearless. Sometimes courage means asking for help. A few days later, the investigation finally produced results. Security footage from several locations confirmed Victor had indeed followed Serena repeatedly. Additional evidence revealed he had tracked her through an old location sharing application she forgot to disable. The discovery shocked her. For months she had unknowingly carried the source of her own fear inside her phone. Authorities moved quickly. Victor was located at a nearby motel and questioned. The evidence was substantial enough to secure a protective order. At last, the nightmare seemed over. Yet the emotional wounds remained. Fear doesn't disappear the moment danger leaves. Healing takes longer. Much longer. Weeks passed. The mountains slowly turned golden beneath the afternoon sun. Summer began giving way to autumn. Serena stayed in town longer than originally planned. So did I. Neither of us seemed eager to leave. One evening we sat near a lake watching reflections dance across the water. No fear. No pretending. No strangers watching. Just peace. For the first time since we met, Serena looked completely relaxed. She smiled and asked if I remembered the first thing I had said to her. Of course I did. Everything okay, my love. We both laughed. At the time it had been an act. A performance. A desperate attempt to help someone in trouble. Yet somehow those words had become the beginning of something real. The beginning of trust. The beginning of healing. And perhaps the beginning of love. Months later, Serena started a support organization for individuals experiencing stalking and emotional abuse. She wanted others to receive the understanding she had struggled to find. I helped document survivor stories through photography projects that raised awareness throughout the region. Together, we transformed painful experiences into something meaningful. Something that could help others. Something that could create hope. Life wasn't magically perfect afterward. There were difficult days. Moments of anxiety. Moments when old fears resurfaced. But now she didn't face them alone. And that made all the difference. Years later, whenever people asked how we met, Serena always smiled before telling the story. A frightened woman. A stranger on a bench. A single sentence whispered in desperation. And an unexpected act of kindness. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who believes in the power of compassion. Your engagement helps inspiring stories reach people who may need them most. Special request. Comment below with the word hope if you believe one act of kindness can change someone's entire future. The truth is that most heroes never wear uniforms. Most life-changing moments don't arrive with dramatic music or grand speeches. Sometimes they begin with something incredibly simple. A conversation. A helping hand. A decision to stay when walking away would be easier. That afternoon at the lodge, Serena thought she was asking a stranger to pretend. Neither of us knew that a few seconds of courage would alter the course of two lives forever. Because kindness has a remarkable way of doing that. It appears unexpectedly. It asks for nothing. And sometimes, when someone is standing at their lowest point, it becomes the bridge that leads them back toward hope. As the sun set behind the mountains on another peaceful evening, Serena squeezed my hand and smiled at the horizon ahead. Not because her past had disappeared, but because it no longer controlled her future. And in that quiet moment, I realized something beautiful. The greatest love stories don't begin when two people find each other. They begin when two wounded hearts help each other heal. And sometimes, all it takes is one small act of kindness, and the courage to say, "Everything okay, my love," before either person knows just how much those words will come to mean. The end.